Okay, so today we're going to be making one of the classic mother sauces, a sauce veloute. A sauce veloute is made with a white stock and a white mirepoix. With a white stock, you're not going to caramelize the bones or the mirepoix. You're just going to put it in raw with water and let it simmer, skim it, and then strain it. Today we're actually going to use what's called a convenience base in order to make our white stock. So I'm going to add some water and then the base, which in this case is powder. Sometimes it can be liquid form, but the idea is the same with either. You're just using the base to flavor the water. You don't want it to be so flavored that you would consider it seasoned, and it would be too salty. This is a sauce that's going to have to reduce, and so if it starts off salty before it's reduced, then it's going to end up too salty by the time it's done reducing. So you have to be careful about making sure there isn't too much of that salty flavor. I'm just gonna add just a touch more because you do want to be able to taste. This is a chicken base that I'm using, so I'm making a chicken stock here. And you do want to make sure that you can taste that chicken flavor. Don't be too careful with the seasoning. All right, so my base is finished. Now I have a nice faucet stock. White chicken stock made with base. So the next components for a classic veloute sauce are going to be a white mirepoix. So very similar to a regular mirepoix that we know is onions, celery, and carrots. A white mirepoix is onion, celery. Sometimes it could be parsnips. Sometimes it could include something like fennel. And today we're going to be using leeks. I include leeks in mirepoix, but that's not necessarily something that all chefs recognize as part of mirepoix. So we have some very small diced onion, small diced celery, and some small diced leeks. Making sure to clean those leeks because they hold quite a lot of sand. If you have any questions about the knife cuts for these, you can see a small dice of these type of ingredients in that chicken noodle soup video. Okay, and also other ingredients for this veloute would also include a bouquet garni or a sachet of herbs and spices that will season. That classic bouquet garni, this is actually a bouquet garni rather than a sachet. A sachet would be if it was enclosed in cheesecloth, but we have some parsley stems, a bay leaf, some fresh thyme, and a little black peppercorn. And then the final kind of component for this sauce veloute will be the roux, which is going to be a combination of fat and flour, butter and flour. We're going to cook those together, and a blonde roux is what thickens the veloute sauce. So we're going to begin making our veloute. Our ingredients over to the stove. Alright, so adding my mirepoix ingredients. And then saute and sweat these down. First saute, cooking them quick. Then I'm going to cover it. I'm covering it just because I think that will help speed up this cooking process, but also make sure that we're not getting any caramelization. If it does look like we're starting to get some caramelization, then we want to turn that heat down. We're just looking to cook the onions through so that they're translucent, making sure that celery is nice and soft. The leeks will cook the quickest, so we don't have to worry about checking those. Just making sure that we're getting these onions and celery cooked through before we start adding our roux ingredients. This will take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. Alright, so our mirepoix has sweated down. We're ready to make our blonde roux. So I'm going to add flour. Now, the ratio for a roux technically is equal parts by weight, fat to flour, but I find it just makes a lot more sense to get used to eyeballing it. And what you're looking for is for your roux not to be runny or pourable. You want it to be relatively stiff. You want it to get to as close as 50-50 ratio as you can, but typically you want it to be maybe just a little heavier on the flour component. The idea really is that you just want to make sure you have enough fat to coat every piece, every particle of that flour, and that's how we're going to get it to incorporate into our liquid and get it to thicken our sauce. Roux can be used to thicken stews as well. So once I get that roux to the consistency that I want, the thickness that I want, once I have it like, not clumpy, because it's still wet, but it's definitely not pourable anymore. Now I'm at the point where I want to toast my roux slightly. A blonde roux is the second stage of roux. The first stage of roux is a white roux. So we haven't even reached that white roux stage quite yet. It takes about 2 minutes of cooking, about a minute before we hit that white roux stage. And the key really is keeping your heat low enough where you're not imparting too much caramelization on these ingredients. And giving it a chance to kind of like sit and toast, and then stirring it to make sure that you're getting it toasted evenly on all sides. We're going to be making a blonde roux, which typically takes anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes of toasting. What's going to happen is it's going to caramelize those flour particles, and we're also going to start to smell something happening in the pan, a little bit of a nutty aroma. It's that caramelization process, the butter starting to brown. It's going to give a little more depth of flavor to the veloute sauce. The more you cook a roux, the less the thickening power. So we are lessening that thickening capability with a blonde roux. One more minute. We're going to be adding a room temperature stock to this roux, and the key when you're adding liquid to a roux is you want to make sure you add it gradually. That really is just the key in my book. I think whether it's hot, one is hot and one is cold, I think that neither matters. It's really mostly about making sure you're adding gradually and whisking so that you can fully incorporate it. And with the roux, we have to make sure we want to activate it. We need to bring this liquid up to a simmer. It's not going to thicken until it hits that simmer. Alright, so we're letting our veloute come to a simmer, and it's thickening up quite nicely. If it's too thick, which it may be just on the edge of too thick, you can add just a little bit more stock. Not too much. Always add more. What you're looking for is nappe consistency. I'll show you what that looks like. Nappe is a French term, and what it refers to is having the ability to coat foods, coat a spoon. And the idea is if you can draw a line in it and it doesn't start to come down in tiers, which this seems to be holding, then we've reached nappe. While your veloute sauce is simmering, you want to make sure that you add your seasoning ingredients, the peppercorn, parsley stem, thyme, and bay leaf. I'll add a little bit of flavor for something else, so I'm going to keep the seasoning super, super mild. Straining out the mirepoix. Using a ladle, not really to push it too much, just kind of make sure we get all the juices, all the liquid out of that mirepoix. Veloute sauce is classically served or seasoned with salt and white pepper. If you were just leaving it as is and serving it with a piece of chicken or Something simple. It's a very basic sauce. Sauce veloute.